Commerce form, you automatically get the okay. So I've started the live stream right now. So hey everyone, welcome to the build and release call, and this happens bi-weekly, so every other week. And today we have a few folks here, few new faces over here, so that we can start the call now. And okay, so Tathagat, okay, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Tathagat Paul. Currently, I'm a final year undergraduate at IIIT Gwalior in India. Um, my main focus of my studies is basically computer science and engineering, and my interest lies in the fields of cloud computing and uh, cloud native software and applications. I have been an
Okay.
LFX mentee for Kyverno in the spring session, and my main my project for the LFX session was integrating an open telemetry instrumentation into Kyverno to replace its Prometheus implementation, which is there currently. Yeah.
Oh, oh, nice. Okay, so and what brought you here? From where did you heard about Meshery? And
Yeah, so previously, I think one of my friends was contributing a bit to Meshery, so I heard about Meshery from there, and then I joined the Slack and got introduced to the community. But I haven't been so much active, like I haven't really communicated with anyone in the community then. But after that, I talked a little bit with Lee on LinkedIn, and then he told me to join one of the meets, and like try to contribute to one of the issues. And yeah, now I'm trying to understand a bit about Meshery and how it works. Yep. So
okay,
that's it. Yeah.
have you give it a run in on your local machine?
No, I haven't really. I was first trying to look a bit into how service meshes work, and then thought that I would try to run Meshery. So I'm currently trying to run Istio on my machine, and then I will give Meshery
Yeah,
a run
actually,
after that.
yeah, that's the whole point. You don't even need to understand how to run istio and all, because Meshery adds a layer of abstraction over all of these things. So you can just start your Meshery, and when you'll go to your, if you have your istio adapter running, if you will start from Meshery CTL, then you will have all the adapters. And if there will be a button when you'll click on istio, there will be just like a plus button. You just click that, and that's it, your istio. And then also we have options for installing your book info and all, so you don't have to write your scripts around that. You can just directly start using Meshery. And if you have any issues with that, just we can connect on Slack and get you through those. How
Yeah,
does that
sure.
sound?
So sounds really easy, I would say. I haven't really delved too much into service meshes and stuff, but it sounds really easy. I will give it a try. Surely.
Yeah, yeah, yes. And you know enough about Kubernetes, right? Although you don't even need to know about that, but you
Yeah.
need a cluster, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, I have. Yeah.
yeah, okay, nice, very nice introduction. And Aman, is this your first time on the call as well? If you are having some audio issues, because can anyone else hear Aman? I can't hear him. So if you can,
I'm sorry, who were you asking for?
I was asking Aman. Yeah,
Okay, thanks.
yeah. So Aman, if you'd like to introduce yourself, you can introduce yourself on chat. If you're having some audio issues, that's fine. It's completely fine. And I think Siva, have you introduced yourself? I mean, you have introduced yourself on Slack pretty much, but I think it's your first time on this call, right?
Yeah. This is the first time I'm actually on call.
Yeah, so and I think you have created a PR on few things as well so can you just also add the PR that you created inside of this topics, just add your PR at the end of it, so that we can discuss about it as well before the call ends, so that we can have everyone. Yeah, so
Yeah, exactly. I'll add those.
okay, thank you. So I think we can start the call now. Start with the topics. The first one is Rutraj. Do you want to share your screen and talk about the changes that you did last week and what's left?
Yeah, so let me just. Yeah. So what the changes were? Uh, yeah. So and we made changes to the core workflow for end-to-end tests on adapters. So it's actually better if I show you the adapter. Sorry. Um, Earlier, what we were doing was we had this file called e2etests.yaml, and in this file, the end-to-end test for the adapters run every time you make a PR or you push to the or you push a commit. So what those end-to-end tests do is they just uh, start up an instance of Meshery and they start up the Meshery adapters and we try to deploy a service mesh. And we have multiple tests, like for example in Istio, we deploy service mesh. We also have another workflow where we deploy service mesh with Grafana and Prometheus. We have another one where we deploy the service mesh, the Istio service mesh with um, the sample app. So what we were initially doing was we were only asserting pods. So we provision the service mesh to come up, and then we check if the pods that we want have come up or not. So we recently made a change to the core workflow where we now can assert any type of the resource. So we added this expected resource types. Right now, obviously, we have not yet implemented any other assertion, but now we support that. So instead of pods, we can have, let's say, services. We can have anything, custom resource definitions, cluster roles, whatever. So that is the main change, and there's an issue for this. If anybody wants to have a look at two screens, yeah. Hold on. That was actually.
So just to while Rituraj is opening this, Tathagat, like I told you right now, if you start Meshery, you can just start deploying your service mesh and all. So these tests just do that. They start Meshery and deploy service meshes, and because we know that when you will do a certain deployment, what are the things that you can expect in your cluster. So the assertions that Rituraj is talking about, those are just that assertions. So like when we deploy Istio, we would expect Istio, the control plane, and a pod named ingress gateway and the pod named egress gateway, and these are regression tests which help us to make sure that if someone made a PR, they didn't break anything, because the most basic functionality that we would want from all the adapters is to at least be able to deploy a service mesh. And just to give you an idea that we have n number of adapters, and there are each adapter for each service mesh. So if you want to deploy Istio, you have your Istio adapter, and the adapters and Meshery server talk to each other using gRPC. So that's your standard architecture. The clients talk to Meshery server, and Meshery server talks to each of the adapters using gRPC calls. And in these gRPC calls, they give the instruction to deploy a service mesh or do any X activity. So yeah, so these tests will help us to make sure that all our adapters at all times are at least fulfilling the basic capability to deploy a service mesh. And also with time we will also deploy, like in Istio, like Rudraj told you, we also deploy book info app and check whether you're able to deploy a book info app or not. So that, yeah, so that's the point. And the issue, if you, Rudraj, can go back to that issue, there the ones
Sounds
where,
pretty good.
yeah, so the ones where there is a check mark, you can see in those adapters we have integrated this new workflow that like previously the name was test adapters.yaml. Ritra changed that name to test underscore adapters.yaml, and the one where you see the tick, these new ones are using the underscore one. The where there is no tick, those adapters are using the older workflow. So there's just a small replacement needed there. And when you will do that, you can also understand how the workflow works. So that can be a really good as a starter issue, just to have a look around what are the workflows, what are the end-to-end tests doing. And because here it's just I don't think there is anything else other than replacing the name, right, Rudraj? Or is there
There is some stuff, but I've already
yeah
detailed everything
yeah
here.
yeah
There is just
yeah
replacement though.
Yeah, exactly. So for example, right now wherever we are making pod assertions, you have to say the word pod, like here it says in the expected resource type. So the keys have changed, and Ruturaj has very beautifully described in this issue, and even I have never created an issue that is this descriptive, so thanks to him for that. And that's why I think few folks were able to pick it up so quickly. And we have only how many left? I guess 3 to 4 adapters left, right? So
Yeah,
app
there's a
mesh is
blocker
not
with
the
entry
priority
lines.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry,
So
Yeah.
app mesh. Yeah.
So I made a PR for Kuma because it wasn't like implemented, I think.
okay.
And
Uh,
app mesh was not on the like it. I don't think that we can define E2E tests for that because yeah, we need to like have
mhm.
some
AWS.
AWS credentials for that for deploying it to
Yeah.
EKS. But I
Yeah.
was talking about like local stack on Slack, and so what I found out was that the EKS API for local stack is under their Pro subscription. So yeah, we will
Oh.
also need to
So,
have
so
yeah
yeah, we'll have to pay anyways, even if
yeah
you use
yeah
local stack or not use local stack. So yeah, we can put that on hold right now. So the end-to-end, the only adapter with no end-to-end test is the one which costs us money. So other than that, every other adapter should have. Okay, so this is the work. Okay, this. Okay, nice suggestion there. Okay, so yeah, that was it on this particular issue. The other action item is about okay, yeah, I'll share my screen first and then we can talk about it a little. Yeah, so this is an action plan discussion or of about supported components. So just to give you an idea, if I go into any of our adapters, let's say this one is the ST adapter, and you'll the directory structure is exactly the same, and it should be. And if you find that any adapter which does not follow the particular directory structure, just you can even create an issue, because our end goal is that all the adapters should be uniform. So like this is the ST adapter, you can go to Kuma adapter, and this DC, it's like the name would change from Kuma to Istio. The structure is the same. So coming back to it, the structure, if you'll go into templates and OM and workloads, you'll find these versions there. And these versions are the version of each of service mesh. For example, for Istio, we are supporting all these versions for Istio, which basically means that you can so when Istio makes a release, it also has components like, for example, let me open one of these, let's say 1.10.0. So it has authorization policy, destination rule, envoy filter, etc., etc. So it might be the case that they change the schema though. So what I mean by that is when you create a YAML file and you give it to kubectl, that YAML files inside of the spec, some things might change depending upon version to version. So for example, there might be the case that authorization policy in 1.10 didn't support this feature, and authorization policy in 1.11 supported that feature. So these things change, and that's why these things are versioned. And what we do with these schemas are that we use these to basically add a layer of abstraction and do validation inside of Meshery, because I will not go on to explain. I've already explained it a while back, but just to give you an idea, these definitions and schemas that you see, these are available for each of the component. And when I say the word component, I just mean these resources. So these Istio specific resources like authorization policy and destination rule, etc., etc. So we have schemas for each of these, and these schemas basically define the structure of that particular resource when you fill it up. And in mesh map we have designer, which is pretty cool. And if just to just like a bit of a segue, if you haven't still signed up for mesh map, it's a good time. After the call you can go and sign up for mesh map, and there you'll find a visual, there you'll find a designer. And on the designer, when you drop a component, Istio component, we are actually using these schemas to generate forms for user to fill. So coming back to, in the context of this particular thing that I'm talking about, we need to also publicly tell people that, hey, for each of the versions we support all of these resources, and we need some kind of a table or something to tell people that. So like for Istio, we have to advertise that, hey, we like all of these versions. If you have Istio running for any of these versions, will be able to just, you can plug us in and we'll be able to support you out of the box for all these versions. And for each version we can support all these components, which is basically all the components. And the way these things are filled, these are actually, there are component generator workflow, whose job is to kick in every 24 hours. What they do is they check if there is a new release for a given service mesh, and if there is a new release for that given service mesh, then they extract the new components and put them under the new version directory. That's it. So that's the job of the workflow. We need another workflow, or maybe some kind of modification in our existing workflow, which also does this thing that we create a table. So let me give you a reference for that. So we already have something called as a compatibility matrix, and few folks have. So the end-to-end test that I just showed you, the Rituraj showed you, the results of these tests can be seen here. So for example, I talked about pod assertions, right? So here you can see that, okay, so these pods ran successfully, etc., etc. So this is the table for that. And what we also need is okay, so this is added recently. And coming back to what I was saying, what we also need is, for each of the adapter, we also want to be able to tell the users that these many. So basically, it's like inside of workloads, whatever versions that you see, this can be let me try to phrase myself properly. So each of these versions can be like one of the fields, and when users click on those fields, like I see authorization policy in these, we can extract these basically the word before dot, and with some kind of intelligent parsing, we can extract. I mean, there's not much intelligent parsing, although we would need spaces in between. So the whole idea is to extract the names, these destination rules and on-wire filter, etc., etc., and put them under. So when user clicks on like 1.10 row, they see a list of human readable names of these things. So, and it can be something similar to this compatibility matrix that we already have. And like we also have something here, we have supported platforms, so it can be something similar to this maybe. Also we had a bunch of these tables. So yeah, so going back to the compatibility matrix, so Rituraj, have you given this a thought, whether we should integrate that into the integration tests, or whether we should create another table just for it? So what can be a good way forward to prettily tell users that we are supporting these X number of versions, and for each version these Y number of components with their names? And what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think we can add it under the service meshes, that heading, the navbar on the left side. So under service meshes, we can have something like, I don't know, compatibility, and then in that we can have a table like that, or we can have this under this tests part. But I think that's more user facing than the tests. I feel like the tests are not really something users need to worry about. So I think we can keep them separate.
So should that be like the whole table itself, or for Istio it should be inside of when users click Istio, so that they see this thing, like they see service mesh, adapter status, adapter version, earliest supported mesh version, and something we can expand on this particular table, I guess. Then all that data can be put over here.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Like have each service mesh separately.
Yeah, does anyone else have a better suggestion, or anyone can does anyone have any doubt over the existing issue, or of what the ask is of, or what we are discussing?
Yeah, can you what exactly is this OM stuff? These are just dependencies for the workloads, right?
Okay, so actually this OAM word should go away, and we are trying to get rid of this. So OAM, because OAM, open application model, it is a spec which you can read the spec itself, and we are not implementing the spec. We kind of started implementing the spec, but it's our own version of the spec. So we have something known as a pattern engine inside of it's like the at the bottom of everything that Meshery is. It's the thing. Okay, so it's the most sophisticated code in Meshery you'll find that will be in the pattern engine, and that is the implementation of this OM spec that you would find online. There's a GitHub repo for this thing, open application model, and the whole idea of an open application model is to give developers so basically an agnostic way of deploying their application. So they should not be concerned about things like very specific things which are very specific to your infrastructure. They should only know higher level stuff. So they want to deploy an application and they don't want to do canary over it. So the idea of open application model is to have your application and then have something known as components and have something known as traits. We are going through a redesign of Meshery. So the things that you see like traits and workloads over here, they are subject to change in future. So I would not go into details about what these are, because there is no use if you're going to change it. But just to give you an idea, the workloads that you see over here, these are not like we won't we shouldn't say
Yeah.
these are dependencies, but these are more like inside of that pattern engine. It does a bunch of validation and stuff, and it's like the configuration. You can imagine this as a kind of a configuration. So like whenever Istio adapter starts up, its job is to take all of these things, all of these definitions and schemas from all of these directories and give it to Meshery server. And Meshery server, so it's same as let me give you a good example, so so that I can draw parallels and you'll understand it. So when you deploy something in basically Kubernetes, and Kubernetes, you give it kind your API version, and then you give it your spec and everything. So you can imagine the schema that we have inside of each of these directory as whatever comes inside of spec, and the definition is whatever is other than spec, like kind API version or not. And you give it to kubeAPI server. kubeAPI server stores it in the etcd database. So and what happens is that for that database is like the registry, and that registry is used for further all the further stuff. So basically from there is a watch. When a controller establishes a watch stream to the kubeAPI server, stuff is going from that registry. So that registry is kind of what can I support at this point in time. So what happens is that like you have let's say virtual service, and when you deploy your Istio control plane, it also registers a bunch of stuff like virtual service and destination rule. So when you then go ahead and deploy a virtual service, your Kubernetes knows what a virtual service is. But if you don't have Istio control plane running, Istio never told Kubernetes what a virtual service is. So Kubernetes will do the validation, and it will say, I cannot identify this resource. What is this? Similarly, we use the same pattern in Meshery. We do our validation. So we need our own schemas. So these are like fingerprints of each of these resources. So when you deploy, we have this construct of pattern file, just like Kubernetes has. This is like the parallels. Kubernetes has their own manifest. We have our own manifest, which we call pattern file under the hood. And this pattern file, when you deploy this pattern file, we have services, right? Like in Docker Compose, you have services. We also have services. So we validate each service, and like one of the service can be virtual service .istio. So this resource will be validated against the schema that will be generated from here. So the job of each adapter is to start up, give this schema to Meshery, and Meshery will store it in its registry, so that when you use pattern engine to deploy your things in your infrastructure, that registry will be used as a single source of truth to do all sorts of validation. So we need these things, and these schemas are not created by us. The Istio is directly giving it to us. So Istio generates these with each of their releases. So we just take it and we do validation on our part also. Although even after we do validation, we internally deploy it on Kubernetes. Kubernetes will also do its validation, but we kind of rip out a lot of logic out of Kubernetes to get a lot of configurability around it, so that we can add our own custom features, and we don't even need Kubernetes. We can work outside of Kubernetes as well. So the whole I went on a tangent, but I hope I was able to explain to you what these workloads are, what these definitions are. Yeah. Okay. So so because these things are stored in the registry, and if we have these, we can claim that for example, if you go inside of definition file, this is the schema file. If you go inside of definition of authorization policy, you'll find this name. So if someone adds authorization policy.istio in their service name of their pattern file, that our construct, so we would be able to deploy it. So if you don't start adapter and you pass a pattern file which has this thing as one of the services, we'll just say we don't identify that. So if because we have all these things, we can claim that we support all these components of Istio, and we need to advertise that as well. So and that lets me circle back to my original point, which was about advertising that.
So basically, Meshery will control the components of Istio through this pattern file, like turning
It
them
will
on
add
and off, kind of.
yeah, it will add a layer of abstraction over those
Yeah, yeah.
over the underlying components. So for example, let's say that you want to add let's say that for example, we have a, let me give you another example which is not related to adapter. We have our own core component of application. So you can just drop your application there, and you will fill those fields which are very user facing, like what are the number of replicas you want, and okay, so what the name of your image and all. And that thing internally actually uses Argo rollouts. So we hide some things from the user, and these pattern files help us to do just that. So for example, in the cases of authorization policy.istio, it's a layer of abstraction, but it doesn't add much to it, right? So in this case, the schema is exactly what Istio registers to Kubernetes as well. So we are not adding a lot to it. So when you'll deploy a service name with this thing, we will internally create a Kubernetes manifest for you, or and we will tell Kubernetes, not actually create a manifest. We use client Go for that, or all those things. We tell Kubernetes that deploy authorization policy for this user. But then you'll ask, why can't I directly tell Kubernetes, and why to use Meshery for this? Well, we can add custom features like MTLS and all those things as a trait attached to the component, so that just before telling Kubernetes deploy an authorization policy, we can do some extra stuff as well, like do this, and then deploy my authorization policy. So this adds like a layer of one layer of abstraction over what
Makes sense.
what you would natively do. Okay, so that was we took a long detour from the workflows. Now coming back to the workflow. So the ask is again to show off all these versions onto a table or of some sort. And as Ruturaj suggested, this makes much more sense to have it here, because here we're also like saying earliest supported mesh version. So maybe we can have another column here, all the versions, and when the user clicks on here, like here, he would, some other box comes up, or maybe he's redirected to another page for so it's like a UI thing, from here. But uh, in terms of pumping data, where do you think that workflow would land? So we would need another workflow that for that, right? Because Rutraj, what do you think? We would need another workflow for that, or can we plug it in?
Yeah. I mean, maybe
So-
we can have it as a part of the component generator workflow.
But yeah, we won't be able to do it for the earlier version, right? Yeah, because the
No, I
component
think the
generator
earlier
workflow
versions
only.
could just, yeah, I guess. I mean, the once, if we have to just do something once, we can just do it and then have it as the rest is a part of the workflow. So earlier stuff would already be like that.
Okay, so you're saying we hard code the existing support and existing
I mean,
stuff,
we can have,
and
yeah, we could have automation, but it doesn't have to be like work, I guess. That makes sense.
okay, so
It doesn't need to be content.
yeah, okay, but here okay, but one thing that can happen is that someone can go and delete a directory, delete one of, for some reason, let's say one previous directory got deleted, and if the whole thing is just incremental in nature, that iterative in nature, that it will kick in and it will just check for the latest, it will not reflect the fact that one previous version that was supported at some point has been deleted now. So a better way would be to each time maybe iterate over the thing, so that we can be sure that if a version directory got deleted, we reflect that change here. So it's more like
Yeah, that makes sense.
level triggered thing, so not just edge triggered, although that wouldn't be correct term, but whatever. So yeah, so what we can do is we can iterate over the om/workloads directory of each
Yeah, we can just have like,
data.
if any push happens to this directory, workloads directory, then it runs.
Okay. Yep. And the JSON format. Right now, right now we push the markdown, right? We push the markdown for the compatibility matrix. I think yeah, we directly push the markdown.
Yeah.
So the markdown that you see over okay, shameful. that I can't remember. Where was the, yeah.
Even I don't
So,
know
okay.
where it's from.
Yeah, that's very that's not good. Okay, so this is the compatibility matrix, and this whole thing that we see right now, it's each row of this thing is pushed as a markdown directly by the workflow and not something that is done inside of the workflow, or not inside Jekyll. So Jekyll just displays it, which is kind of good as well. It gives us a lot of control over how we want it to look like and all. Okay, can you look why the traffic mesh doesn't have any version? Can you look into that, Rudraj?
Yeah.
Okay. So have you created an issue for the thing that you're talking about?
Yes, I have. I'll send it to the chat.
Okay, so also paste. Okay, yeah, you can send it on the chat. That would be much better than pasting it on the meeting minutes. Next thing is so we're moving on to the next item. This conversation regarding this discussion will continue inside of the issue, the link of which Rutraj will paste in the chat. And yep, moving on to the next item, fixing vulnerabilities across the adapters. And Lee pointed this out, I guess yesterday, about inside of Artifact Hub we have images for Meshery server and each of the adapters, and it shows us the security report for it. So for example, if you're using an image that has vulnerabilities, then basically it gives us some grade based on that. So for example, inside of Meshery CPX, the rating is F, which is, well, not good. So the ask would be to, and so because we are using this version and this was the vulnerability was fixed in this version, so the whole idea is to use this security report to go over what are the uh, security vulnerabilities in which versions and from in which version this was fixed, and just change the version in the Docker image of each of these adapters. And Lee actually made a PR on that, I think, and I think Rituraj, you have already seen it, right? I've seen some of your comments on this.
Yeah.
So what was this? What was, because I didn't get time to look at this PR thoroughly. What was the major thing that was changed here?
So yeah, just one line actually. It just pulls the latest image of the Stolas instead of hardcoding that is 4. It just pulls the latest one.
Yes. The underlying was binary
Yeah.
is
So
built for him.
initially, Lee had the image name was latest ARM64. So that was creating conflicts with the binary being built for x86, and then the underlying OS was ARM. It was not running properly. So we changed it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So we would need a few of. Is this PR according to you? Is this PR good to go? Did you say yes?
Yeah, I think so. It should be good to go. I've not checked it after the Lee pushed the commit, so it must be most likely. But I'll check again.
Okay, good enough. So yeah, you can find the link to this thing on the meeting minutes, and if each one of you can pick one of the vulnerabilities. I mean, the adapters that I would really recommend is to first go forward is Istio and Linkerd and Cilium, and now we have Cilium, of course, Cilium and Traffic Mesh and Console and OSM, and then everything follows from there. And it's always good to have a lot of people working on each of the adapter, because sometimes I forget how many of these we have. So it's easy to lose track when you have so many of those. And as you could see in that modal I opened, there were a bunch of them. Yeah, so moving on to E2E test and console adapter. Hamza, are you here? I guess he was here, but okay, so he joined in and he left, I guess. Okay, so we can move on to the yeah. So yeah, I have this small issue to talk about. If someone wants to, they can pick this up. So the issue is this, that if you go into the templates home directory and if you will go into workloads, you'll just see four versions. and it means that we are supporting just 4 versions. And when I say we are supporting, it is semantically equivalent to saying we have schemas for. So whenever I say supporting, just replace that in your head with we have schemas for. Okay, so we are supporting these 4 versions, but uh, as far as I know, Linkerd has way more versions than just 4 versions. And okay, so they have a lot of their, so we don't generate components for edge. So that's first thing. We should be generating components for edge. And secondly, even for stable, we are not generating. We have it for example, for stable, we have the oldest stable as 2.10.2, right? 2.10.2. And if I go to like the 4th page or something, we will have pardon my slow internet connection, but we would have, okay, 2.11.0, but we to stable. But the point is we have even older versions, and the reason we don't have these in place is that there is a component generator workflow whose, again, as I described, whose job is to see the latest version of the service mesh. So it is safe to assume that we would not have the components prior to the time we put that particular workflow in place. So the first time we put the component generator workflow in a Linkerd adapter, the latest adapter that time was 2.10.2, and for some reason we didn't generate the schemas for before that. So I will create an issue for this. Have I also no, I haven't already created an issue for this, so I will create an issue for this if someone wants to take this up. And if now the second natural question is uh, how to generate components for any given version for any service mesh. Initially, we used to have hacky bash scripts, but then I took the whole logic and put it inside of this build/config.go. And in each of the adapters, the entire logic needed to generate workflow, generate schemas, sorry for a slip of tongue, is inside of this config.go. So right now, see, as you can see here, we take up all of the versions, and because we have sorted these versions, so the 0th version is our latest version. So when you start your adapter, this this function, this init function, because we are also importing the build package, so this init function, this routine gets run. So even if you're running it on your machine, it will also check that, hey, what's the latest version? I'll go ahead and generate components for that. So all you need to do is, instead of doing it for the latest version, I'm bluntly telling you the logic for it, like pseudocode for it. Instead of doing this, so as you can see, where latest version is used, this latest version is what we have defined, and I think we are using it. Okay, so we define this latest version here, and inside of our main.go, if I go back to my main.go, that's basically the whole configuration for that. Here is where we run the actual code. So here we pass it the latest version. So the only thing that would need to change is that we also have a variable all versions. So instead of looping this thing only for the build.latest version, you can take the versions just for a one-time thing. So you can basically just make changes in your main.go and start your adapter. All the older components also will get generated, and then all the changes that you would have done in this main.go, just stash them or basically remove them. You don't even need them for later. So the change is this, that instead of just the latest version, create a variable versions, and that would be build.all versions, and build.all versions actually have all the versions. And here is where we loop over this whole thing, that this whole routine that we do from line number 188 to line number 281. This is a register. This is responsible for creating the components. So put all of this logic inside of a for loop, which would run for each of the build.all versions. So for each of the version and build.all versions, we would run this logic. And here the version that you can see, that version would be the iterate, basically on each iteration this thing would change, because we would be extracting this from build.all versions. So yeah, and now you don't have to write people used to write bash script for that, and they used to ask what's the appropriate filter, and you need, because we use QOpenAPI JSON schema for this, and you might need that binary, and if you don't have, it will actually go ahead and download that binary for you. So right now we use QOpenAPI JSON schema, but that's under the, for someone wondering what is QOpenAPI JSON schema, what am I talking about? I think it is under layer 5 IO slash. Yeah, this is the one. So we use this. This is just a very thin layer over an existing project that was there in basically in Node, and the whole we package the whole Node runtime in one binary, and it's a very stupid logic, just a very thin abstraction over an existing tool. And the job of this tool is actually to go to we basically extract custom resource definitions from the service meshes, and the job of this particular binary is to from inside of that custom resource definition extract that schema that is then saved inside of schema.json that I showed you earlier, coming back. Yeah, so the only change you would need to do is that change this to all versions, generate your component, then change it back, so that you on your local system, those things would be no, you would see new components under templates workloads. Right now there are only 4 of these, so we would want for all the edge versions and for all the previous table versions, so for as many as possible, as much as there are. And if someone has any problem doing this thing, can anyone quickly just take this up right away, or should I create an issue and then take it slowly there? Aman, are you saying something? The box says green, but you don't say anything. Can you write it on chat? Okay. Anyone else? Okay, I guess I'll create an issue, and that would be nice. But I really hope I was able to get the idea across, right? Coming to, is Uzair here? I guess Uzair is not here. Oh, hi Pranav, you joined. It is nice surprise to see you.
Yeah.
Did you join just now?
No, actually, I joined 15 minutes back, like 11 minutes back.
Okay. And Hamza, you're back as well. Okay. Hi, how are you? You were absent, and actually you were present and then absent and then present. Are you right now present or absent? Okay, I think Hamza again. Okay, so he dipped again. So he's like playing kind of a game, hide and seek with me. Next time I'll catch him, definitely. Okay, so moving on to the Uzair is not here, so otherwise he would have talked about Cilium workflow. So in Cilium adapter, all the component generator workflow and as well as the end-to-end tests are pending. One of the other things to talk about would be testing E2E with multiple. I think we can take up Siva's topics first, so that he doesn't miss it, because he made it to the call. So Siva, you have 3 of these marked here. Go ahead, the mic is yours. Talk about any of these.
Yeah, hi everyone. Actually, 2 are related to same issue, and last but one. And then first one.
Can you also share your screen, Siva? It would be nice to. So
yeah, I'm sharing that. Is it visible?
It's just black screen for me.
Yeah, it's okay. Now it's visible.
Yeah,
now we can see.
Yeah. I added a Meshery Helm chart to stable repository in KubeSphere. Actually, there is a repository in KubeSphere. KubeSphere is a operating system management portal. Like we have to upload our Meshery Helm chart to that repository. So I created the pull request for that repository. Let me. I actually manually that pull request. We have to write workflow for that, but we don't have any action to do the pull request for that repository. So actually created that, but we have the complaints that we are not going to depend on the code outside of our project. So we temporarily stopped that thing, and we actually pushed that Helm chart manually to this repository. Okay, you can see that this is a Helm chart I added, which is in the install folder of that Meshery. Actually, we have the installed folder Kubernetes. There we can find the Helm chart of that Meshery. So I just copied and copied in this repository and made a pull request to this repository, and it's in the process of approval. We can see after that, we can see our Meshery in CubeSphere. It's waiting the review. Okay.
Can you paste the link of this pull request on the chat as well?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. And you were saying something, so I interrupted.
Okay, and then I think it's not worth to discuss that GitHub action which I created. Like we are not actually using that. Okay, that's all for now. Yeah, that's it. We just pushed that thing to this repository, waiting for the review.
Oh, nice.
And then Ashish, we both solved three issues. Like we added the tests in those with the 3 PRs. Actually, let me show that. Okay, it's loading. It's not that good. Ashish, you guide me to do the PRs for the adapters. This one.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
Detect inconsistency in the error codes. Like I made 3 PRs on that, and then added Meshery's Helm chart. That's it.
Yeah. There's on the first built in release call, there is a lot of items to the agenda. That sounds really nice. And thanks. Those PRs were really quick, to be honest. So thanks for getting those in. We really need those because those things keep hanging as issues that no one takes up, and then it gets stale. And so thanks for that. And okay.
Yeah,
anyone else has any
Can I stop my
yeah, you can stop sharing. I think I'll go ahead and talk about the left out agenda items. Hamza, okay, so Hamza is back. Before he goes again, Hamza, this time would you like to talk about the end-to-end test in console? Where are you right now with that?
End-to-end test, I built the pattern file for the sample app, but this the plain end-to-end test with no pattern file, with no application pattern file on it, it has still refused to run. Like the pods don't come up. And today the pull request I made was also, it skipped them. The one I made onto my report. So I don't know. I had to post the issue in CI. Rather in CI. Yeah, that's my progress. But I'm not going to demo anything today. But
yeah, I think you're outside right now. It's fine. So on your the last test that ran, I can see I think I saw some errors there. It didn't run because it had a missing field or something. So okay, so so this is some other workflow. If it didn't run because it needed a version field, I guess, which you didn't pass. So yeah, so this is invalid value workflow reference. So I think I'll I think we should merge this one after this issue is fixed. And I think the only issue before this thing was that the pods weren't coming up, right, Hamza?
yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think we can still Okay, I think we can still go ahead and merge those PR. That will reflect red in this compatibility matrix and give us even more motivation to go ahead and look for the issue. And I would go ahead and look for the why those pods are pending. That's actually something pointed out. That's a good thing that is being pointed out by your by the addition of those tests. So I think we should merge that PR anyways. So and that this is a long standing PR, so we will merge it after that version thing is fixed. So I'll after this call I'll tell you the fix for that, or whatever the syntax problem is on that thing, or Rituraj will, or I will, any of us would, and we should get that merged. Otherwise it's kind of, we're sitting at the pod for a long time, and we're almost 6 minutes are remaining, so I think I can quickly talk about this one pending item, which was about testing with multiple K8s versions. So recently we had an issue where the deploying the application wasn't working, and in the SMP action it wasn't working, and some other places also it wasn't working. And the reason it wasn't working is because the application construct, the application core component that we have inside of Meshery is not compatible right now. Not right now because I have created a PR. After that it will be is not compatible with Kubernetes version after 1.22, I guess, or something like that. But because we do integration tests only on Minikube version 1.20.1, that was we couldn't catch it. So if we are only testing it with one Kubernetes version, these regression tests should run on multiple Kubernetes versions, so that these things can be caught before someone reports a bug of that sort, because the issue that was there was completely should be something that should be caught here, and not someone using it. And because that's the whole point of having something like that. So in the current workflows that we have, I think if I'm not wrong, Ruturaj, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we just have one field, right, where you specify K8s version. You cannot specify an array of K8s version, right?
Yeah, at least across adapters, we just use one version. There, I think it's just a single plan.
Okay. So I think although the issue that you have created, I think that can be closed in spite of the fact that this gets solved. But this can be basically consolidated in another issue. I will create it, or if you'll create it, if you can create it after this call. The issue should be that we need to run these tests on multiple versions and not just one. And so right now we're just running it on one version. Maybe some last 5 Kubernetes version I think should be enough for now. Let's say 1.23, 1.22, 1.21, 2 and 19. Maybe we can, because each of these will take time, so we can start off from there. So what we would need is that if I go to the current core workflow that we use, it's okay. So I opened the older one before Ruturaj gets irritated that I didn't open his workflow, which is the newer one. So let's go back to the okay. So this is the recent. So here, okay, so K8's version is just as type string. Okay, so I think we would need this to be, does this Rituraj, are you aware that these inputs, that can the type be an array?
Yeah, I mean, anyways, we pass an array in expected namespaces, so we just pass it like that. It's a string, but
Yeah.
it's an array.
Yeah, those are comma separated. We do our so we can have a comma separate instead of K8 version, we can have something like K8's versions. And although this would be not that much tricky, but K8 CNIs, the corresponding version, like that. Or we can have one CNI for all of these versions, doesn't matter. The whole point is that this core workflow that we run, this whole thing should be each iteration of each version. And I think a few other things would change as well, like the output file would have a different the output JSON that it produces, this core workflow, it would have a different format. Like the output that we get right now, that would be a value of the key would be the Kubernetes version. So we can have test results for each of these versions so that we can know for what version it failed. Does that sound good to you? Something?
Yeah, and we'll also have to update the docs.
Yep. That's so. Does anyone else have any suggestions regarding this thing? This regarding having multiple Kate's versions? Anyone want to take this up? How about that? Anyone want to take this up? We would help you. It's not something that we would. How should I say? It's not a high velocity thing that we would pressurize you to get it right the first time. So if someone wants to take this up, I'll create an issue. Uh, be you can frankly jump on that, even if you take a week or so. You can get a hang of it, get a hang of the workflow. Maybe after you get a hang of the workflow, you would want to come and join. So I would create an issue and wait for 2 or 3 days before from my side going and assigning it to somebody, like maybe Rituraj or maybe someone else. So I'll also post a link in the Slack in the Meshery CI channel for the issue that I'll create. But I think everyone got what the core issue is about having the multiple Kates version, and I already have explained the whole workflow and how it works. So it would be nice to have that thing inside of our capability, inside of our integration tests, inside of this compatibility matrix, so that the thing that happened today, that we couldn't catch that something was failing for that Kubernetes version, we would be able to catch it. So and right now we only do it for Minikube. Like how would that sound? Why should we do it for other like something else as well, like kind or something, or Minikube is enough? Because what do you think, Rutraj, or anyone else? Tathagat, Siva, what do you think? Doing it for something like Minikube is enough, or should we do it for kind and other type of clusters as well?
I can take this issue, but yeah, I will need a little bit of time for doing that. But sure, I can take this issue. Also about
That's
using kind. Actually, I use K3 K3D for dev, but yeah, I think we can. I think using just Minikube is fine, I guess.
Okay. So I'll create an issue and I'll. Yeah, go ahead, Rituraj.
Yeah, I was saying if we were to use different platforms, then so I'm not sure about the user base of Meshery, but I'm sure a lot of people use it on EKS and stuff. So I mean, anyway, we're not testing it on EKS anyway, so might as well do it just on Minikube.
Yeah, so
like it won't
mostly
be
if
anyway.
Yeah, you're right. So it was more of a suggestion to add rows in the in the matrix so that it looks bigger. Maybe that was the reason. Yeah, but for now Minikube sounds good enough. And thank you, Tathagat, to take this issue up front, and I will assign this to you. No sweat regarding this thing. If you have any issue, if you run into any problems or you have anything to ask me on the channel, so that others can also get an idea about where are you stuck. Maybe others can help you before I can get to it. So that would be nice. So I'll assign that to you. How does that sound cool, Tathagat?
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for taking this up. And we're on the top of the call, and I think we covered almost everyone here. And yep, so thank you everyone for coming. This was it. This is it for today's call. This call will take place again.
I have a couple, just to interject, I have a couple quick items if I could, which is one.
Okay. Yeah.
The matrix strategy. So maybe this is something that you'll end up creating as part of the issue that you'll open. But to the extent that GitHub facilitates an array of version numbers for the thing, whatever that is, if that's like there are no doubt many other people who've solved this particular problem of like multiple versions of Kubernetes, whatever kind that is. So yeah, I just wanted to call that out, just this capability in case it wasn't on the list.
Yeah, actually, I was also referring to this thing that the comma separated thing, that would be, we would take this from that workflow call parameter, and then inside of the job, of course, we'll use something like this matrix and dynamically fill these variables from what user passed or from the like from each of the adapters called. So yeah, so that sounds nice. So for the Thagat, you can use this matrix just as a anything else.
Yeah, one last item is K3D. Hey, that's a so I mean, Rudraj's point about like the users that are super serious with using Meshery to help run their infrastructure, they're not often running it in production on Minikube. That said, it is, and so we do desire to test against some of those managed services, GKE and AppMesh and EKS and AKS and all those things. As a matter of fact, that reminds me, Azure gave us 10,000 in credits to go do that. I have to follow up. But it is true that that generally speaking, a lot of times, those that might be running Meshery on those managed Kubernetes environments, they'll often start with just a local deploy in a Minikube or in a Docker desktop or a K3D or a kind. And so greasing the wheels there and making sure that things are compatible, largely has the effect of ensuring that they're compatible with EKS and AKS because there's a Kubernetes distribution validation program that they should be adhering to the same APIs. So largely it has the effect of guaranteeing compatibility, but it also has the effect of ensuring that when they do a local deployment, even if it's only for playing around and kind of testing out Meshery, that things still work. So the point is K3D, that seems like we should probably crack open an issue and pressure Tathaka to pick that up.
Sure, sure. I will look into it. Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks.
So thank you, Lee, for the end notes. And I think, does anyone else has anything else to add over what Lee said or over something else? Maybe your topic got lost. Okay. I would consider that silence is no. So we're on the top of the hour. We're 6 minutes after. So I think this will be a good time to end the call now. So thank you for everyone for joining, for people to taking up issues, and for people to displaying what they were doing for last week. And this call happens bi-weekly. So make sure whatever your progress is by the next week, make sure to show that up by next week. And yeah, so see you then by that time. By then, for then, good night, good morning, good evening, or whatever your time zones that you're in. Bye, everyone.
Yeah. Bye, everyone, guys.
Yes. Bye, Ashish.